Welcome back to part 2 of turning our shed into our chicken coop, and today is all about getting these doors done. Welcome back, everybody. We're at part 2 of turning our shed into our new chicken coop. So if you haven't seen part 1, we'll make sure we leave a link at the end of the video. And now we're at the point of putting in our exterior doors. One is going to be the pop door, and the other is going to be a double door for Coop clean out.
And then once we're done with the doors, once we're done with the structure, we have to insulate the walls, get some internal walls up. We're going to put something on the walls that's easy to clean because chickens. And we have to use insulation here on the East Coast just because our temperatures drop as low as they do. We need to make sure that they're kept warm in the winter because we don't want to have to add a heat source to the chicken coop. So just to make sure stuff stays warm enough for them when it gets cold, we'll have everything nice and insulated.
Yeah. So follow along on this video while we get those doors done, and then we'll be looking for your feedback to help us with ideas for when we get to the inside of the coop, working on our nest boxes and our perches and things like that.
These are the existing double doors that we have in the workshop side of the shed. And I want to duplicate these for over on the chicken coop for our big doors for cleaning out the coop. They come right up to the header. They're not full height doors, but we're not tall people, so it's not like I have to duck to go through the doorway. And the way these are set up is we have one locking door that can be opened and closed just to come in and out of the shed, and the other one has locking pins that pin it to the floor and the ceiling so that it stays shut unless you need it to open. You can just pop those pins, both doors open. So what I'm going to do first is copy these frames, the exact measurements, the same boards. We have a laminated plywood beam here. I'm going to copy that. I'm not sure why they do this. I don't know if they do this to prevent the board from warping or just to make it a little bit stronger than the pine or whatever these studs are made out of. But I'm going to duplicate it exactly the same. I'm going to see what I have for hardware so I don't have to buy anything. I may have to buy a handle, but we'll see what I can dig up. But let me get these frames built and then we'll come back. Actually, you know what? Before we do that, I'll bring the outside and I'll show you what they look like on the outside, because I want to duplicate that as well as far as the way the trim is set up, so it looks fairly consistent all around. So let's do that. We'll go outside and take a look. So this is the outside of the shed. This is what the doors look like, the way they have this white trim on here. And the way the hinges are, the way they have kind of this header over the door. I'd like to duplicate all of this trim because it's not just for looks, it also helps with the overlap of the door when they close, so you have more of a weather-tight seal. So I guess after I make the frame, the next thing I need to do is see what I can come up with for like a rough cut 1x that I can rip to these dimensions, and then I'll get everything painted. I found some hinges already. They're not exactly like these, but they'll have to do. I painted those black. I'll be painting all of my pre-painting all of the trim white. I just want everything ready so the day that we do cut a big hole in the side of the shed, I can do the whole build that day, get it framed out, get the doors put in, and not have to worry about painting and doing all that stuff afterwards. So I guess I'll start collecting this stuff after I'm done with the frames, and then we'll see what's next. Well, I finished getting the frames built. This one was pretty straightforward. This one was fairly straightforward, but I did have to make this beam. It's just a laminated plywood beam. I'm not exactly sure why, so if anybody out there in the comments knows why this is the one that has the handle going through it with the lock. If anybody knows why this one, on every Amish built shed that I've seen, where the doorknob is, there's always this laminated plywood beam rather than the standard 2x3s that are used for the rest of the construction. If anybody knows why, let me know. But I did it anyway. I figured somebody knows a lot more about building sheds than I do. So I just copied the design. It works great on all the sheds we have. So, you know, why fix it if it ain't broken? Or why break it when it should be, you know, done right? I could have made the whole thing out of 2x3s, but I'm sure I would have run into a problem further down the road. So, but now that these are done, I just need to find the wood to use, that 1x3. I'll get the measurements for it and rip all of the trim pieces that I'm going to need. Then I'll get those sanded and painted and ready to go. So I'll have the frames done, I'll have a stack of trim, and then when I know I'm going to have 1 or 2 nice days, that's when we'll cut some studs, knock a hole in the side of the shed, and whip that door together quick. So that way we don't have it open overnight. So that's our next step. I finished building the pop door, and I did do a whole lot of filming because I already have a blog on our website that goes over step by step on how to make a door like this. We really like this design. It's what we used on our old chicken coop. And the way it works is you have a cord that actually runs elsewhere that can be pulled, and that lifts the door up. And this will be cut out, and it lowers the door back down. The beauty is you can't lift the door unless you use this cord. There's a locking mechanism inside that prevents it from opening unless I pull this cord. And that's going to keep predators out. We live in the woods, and we have coyotes and foxes and bobcats, raccoons, lots of critters that would like to get in here and eat our chickens. And to prevent that, having a locking door is a must for us. But what I can do right now is I'll take this plate off and show you what the mechanism looks like. That way you can kind of see it in action and see how simple this actually is. I'm actually in the workshop side of the shed, and that's where the cord is mounted. So this is the closed position, and when I want to let the girls out in the morning, I just need to pull a cord, and you can see what's happening in there, how that disc is moving, those like wing-shaped locking mechanism. And I can open the door, and then when I close the door, if you watch that circular disc in the middle will drop down, and those wings will close and tabs will enter the frame, locking it. So that's in its locked position. Well, we got all of the molding cut, and what's funny about this is the majority of this came from an old box spring that we were going to be throwing away. Tore apart the box spring, pulled out 1,000,000 staples, ripped these down to 2.5 inches to make our molding, and got all the pieces we need cut out from just a box spring and an old door jamb. What Marilyn's painting here is a piece of an old door frame. Once that's painted up, that'll be the first coat on everything. We're going to do a second coat of paint. And once those pieces are painted, we'll be ready to install that door. We've got all the other pieces that we need. I did have to order a handle from Amazon. It was $15, but that should be here in a couple days. And then we'll move on to getting that door installed.
Well, hopefully the weather forecasters are correct for today and tomorrow, and we don't get any rain, because now we've taken a panel off and opened the side of our building up to get in and out without a problem. But this is where our new double door is going to go. So this is going to be the door that we can use to clean out the chicken coop, And if we ever had to move anything large in or out, this would be the space that we would do it through. Normally this door will be closed, the pop door will be right over here at the bottom. We took the panel, this was just one 4-foot wide panel, we took that off carefully so that we can reuse that on the doors that we're going to put into place, so we don't have to buy new wood for that. But the next step for us is going to be to take these two 2x4s out, to cut this bottom footer piece even with the two sides so that we can move that up underneath the existing header, and that'll let us have our initial frame in so that we can next get our door in.
Well, we beat the rain and we finished the doors. We got those hung. I think they came out pretty good. I had to touch up a few spots, and I didn't have a gray that was exactly the same color as the siding, but you know, it's a chicken coop, good enough. This is our main door now from the run to get in and out of the coop. And then for clean out, just like on the workshop side, just pop a deadbolt and we have double doors. So clean out is as simple as just raking everything from the coop out into the run proper, and let the chickens just dig that up a little bit more, turn it into better compost for us. And then we just clean it from the chicken run. It goes right into our compost pile to season if it's hot, if the compost is hot, or if it's old enough, we just use that to prep our beds in the fall and just let that hot compost cool over the winter, so in the spring they're ready to go. But now that these doors are finished, let me get these closed. We also finished the pop door. The door was already built, but we didn't cut a hole in the siding. We wanted to do all of the holes in the walls on the same day, and we wanted to make sure that we weren't going to have bad weather in between, so we kind of rushed to get all that finished. So I got the hole cut, and then we had some leftover molding that we had made from our box spring, and we just used the same molding to trim it out, just to kind of tie the whole thing together. But now that all of our doors are done, and all of the electrical and everything else that we had to do inside, the next part is insulation and our interior walls. The walls, we're going to use something that's just easy to clean. Anybody who owns chickens knows there is no keeping things pretty. They're going to make a mess in there, and the easier it is for us to clean, the better everybody's lives are going to be. So let's get back inside and we'll go over what's next. Well, I've got about 150 feet of leftover insulation from when we insulated our pantry. We were saving the extra rolls. We bought it in bulk just because we got a much better price that way. But we saved the extra rolls with the intention of later on insulating another room in the house. But it was a project that we just never got to. And these have been sitting around in our car garage for a while. And now we have a project that we can use them on. And I'm glad we bought this when we did. The price was much, much lower 5 years ago than it is now. But I'm not going to even need this much. I think a couple 100 feet should do this space, not including the ceiling. The ceiling I'm going to end up doing differently. But we'll see what we have left over. If anybody has ever had the pleasure of working with fiberglass when it is hot and sweaty out, you'll understand how much I'm going to enjoy doing this part of the project. I'm not really going to show it. Maybe what I'll do is I'll just kind of show clips of me going through it. It's a long, boring, and painful process. So once this is finished, I'll show you what the walls are done insulated. And then we'll talk about what we're going to use as interior walls. While sourcing for our interior walls, we remembered in this pile of spare wood and stuff, we have all these sheets of masonite. Let me see. I don't know how many sheets we have there. But this was for a project that we were going to do in the photo studio. We were going to make an infinity wall, and we never got around to it. And we have all this extra masonite laying around. I think this would be perfect for the interior walls in the chicken coop. It's nice and smooth, easy to clean, lightweight, and we're not using it for anything else. It's just part of our collection of wood that we have in one of our garages, along with an old 48 Chevy pickup truck. Anybody want to buy that? So we're going to collect this wood today. It's 100 degrees out, so we're trying to do this as early in the morning as we can so we can beat the heat. We'll get that moved into the chicken coop, and once the insulation is done, we're going to start putting this stuff up.
For anybody who has ever put up insulation in 100-degree temperatures, you can understand how Steve and I have felt sweaty, itchy, and miserable the last few days. But we finally have the insulation all up in the coop. We were able to use insulation we had left over from a project, and that was awesome. It meant we didn't have to go out and buy anything. We also were able to use some styrofoam that we had left over from another project to insulate where the pop door is so that it wouldn't interfere with the cable that opens and closes that. Now, one other important thing that we wanted to make sure we got done was we put in a window at the peak, and we have a temperature controlled simple little window fan in it right now to help get the excess heat and moisture out of the coop. So now that that's done, we're ready to move on to getting the sheathing up on the walls.
Marilyn's putting up the first sheet of masonite. So this is going to be the first piece of wall. These are 8-foot sheets. It's going to need a little bit of trimming under that fan, and then we'll have to piece a little bit above it. But that'll get our seams above where the chickens are. There'll only be very few seams where the boards meet, and all of the little pieces where all the seams where we patch stuff in, all that'll be up top away from the birds. So a little easier to keep things clean. We got somebody trying to come in here. Hey, little girl, we're not ready for you yet. Well, we finished putting up all the insulation. We did the ceiling, we did the walls. We used R13 fiberglass insulation, mostly because that's what we had. So we used up almost everything that we had in our storage garage. We probably have about 7 feet of insulation left. So it was a pretty good use for what we had. And then we finished putting up the masonite, which is really here just to kind of finish the walls and to keep the chickens away from the insulation. But we used it on the walls, we used it on the ceiling, and we've now got everything all closed up. We're not going to bore you with the finishing pieces. We've got some partially used gallons of paint that we have out in the garage. We're probably just going to mix together whatever it is we have. Don't really care what color it's going to turn out. And we're going to use that just to paint the floor and get that nice and sealed, just to make it last that much longer. We're gonna cut a sheet of vinyl to go over that on the floor because we use the deep litter method for our chickens, and it just protects the floor. We may or may not paint the walls. It's not meant to be pretty, it's meant to be functional. It's a chicken coop. And which brings me to, it's not really a chicken coop until you put chicken stuff in here. So our next video is probably going to be dedicated to how we build our nest boxes. And if we have time, we may actually start building our perch system as well. But our nest boxes, we're going to want to go with at least 6 nest boxes. We're thinking about building it like a piece of furniture, kind of where the camera is over there. It'll be against the wall. We want storage under the nest boxes and storage above the nest boxes. That way we're not really wasting wall space. It'll also keep the chickens from climbing under the nest boxes and laying eggs or climbing on top of the nest boxes. It'll just be one unit with 6 holes in it that the birds can then go into. If you have any suggestions for nest boxes, put them down in the comments. You know, I have an open mind. We'll look at anything anybody posts and consider it. We've been doing it for a little while, but we're not experts. And then when we move to our perch system, the perch is going to be removable just to make the coop easier to clean. It's definitely going to be a multi-tier system so that the birds can choose their pecking order on the perch. We're going to do a poop board. That way it's easy to clean, and we can also concentrate our fertilizer when we do clean out the coop. But again, any comments, any suggestions on perches, put those down in the comments below as well. And until our next video, see ya.